Today what we're going to be doing is talking about our college essays. So last class you looked up colleges, trade schools, whatever you want to do after high school, and you pulled up the essay prompt. What we're going to be doing for our test grade this unit is writing that essay. Let's say you're going to a trade school that doesn't require an entrance essay. There's a couple options for you. The first thing you can do is just do the applied Texas essay, just to have something there. But also scholarship essays are the same thing usually. They're also narrative essays. And if the difference between you having to pay for your school and not having to pay for your school is you writing an essay, you should write the essay in class. So we gotta think. What kind of essays are college essays supposed to be? So application essays and scholarship essays almost always are going to be narrative essays. A narrative is a story, and it's usually a personal story. So you're going to be telling us about your life and something that's going to support a larger point. In this essay, it should be why you are such a great candidate for their school, why you'd be special there, or why they should give you money. So your goal is to be talking about the qualities that make you the best candidate for their school. Most of you think of write narrative stories the longest, and some of us have some weird habits that we learned in the 4th grade, and we're going to try to talk about what makes a really good narrative essay that can be taken seriously by a college campus. So first, what are the elements of a narrative essay, and how can I make sure I'm doing it perfectly? So the majority of a narrative essay is going to be scene. You start narrative essays in the moment and start showing descriptions. So normally, when you're thinking about a narrative essay, you want to start in a moment in time. So if I want to talk about a baseball game where I was the best player on the team and I made a big difference for everybody, I want to start when I'm at bat, not talking about like me deciding I get to play baseball. I want to start in that moment. And I want to describe it in as much imagery and details as I can. So I might be me walking up to the plate, carrying the weight of the bat, talking about the gloves on my hand, instead of saying, I went up to bat. And then you want to tell the story in real time, as if your audience or your reader is going to be walking through it with you. And instead of picking lots of moments to talk about, pick one in itself. The more details you can give about one moment, the better you're going to have to elaborate on. You do need transitions, but then after your scene, what's important is to have reflection. So narrative essays become really good when you take the scene and then you reflect and pull out the stuff you want your reader to know about you. You're explaining why that was significant. If I'm talking a moment about me going up to bat and me being nervous and then I hit a home run, why is that important? The reflection is the moment that you then get to elaborate and say, in this moment, I realized that fear can't hold me back and that anything worth doing in life is going to be scary. I have to be stronger than my fear. That reflection, or what you take away from that moment, is what's so important about narrative writing, and that's where you get to give your thesis statement. So unlike other essays where we start our thesis statement in the very beginning, the thesis statement in a narrative essay comes at the end. After you tell your story, you get to these points and why it matters. So if I'm talking about I overcame my fear and that made me more successful, that's a great thesis statement because it's telling my audience exactly why I'd be a great candidate for their school. I am cool under pressure. I like a hard trial, and this thing goes beyond just playing baseball. It becomes who I am as a person. Does anybody have any questions so far about scene, reflection, or the thesis statement? The thesis statement, every essay has a thesis statement, but in a narrative writing, it comes at the end of your essay. And that's because through the story you're telling, it should reveal the truth or significance about the thing you're doing. For a college essay, that truth or that significant idea that you're trying to share is why you're a good applicant and how the story shows your good qualities. So again, we're looking at the structure. I'm starting, the majority of my essay is going to be the scene, and then these reflection moments come after the big things. So I'm going to have a long paragraph explaining the moment I'm in, and then a reflection what I took away from it. And in these reflections are when my thesis statement comes. In a narrative essay, there's two main types of thesis statements. There's an implicit thesis and an explicit thesis. Implicit means implied or not directly stated. So if I'm just telling you based off the context clues of what's happening, that would be an implicit thesis. So if I'm talking about how I'm overcoming fear and I'm being stronger, and all of these are going to connect to my thesis statement, that's going to be implicit. But an explicit thesis statement would be something like, from baseball, I learned that fear can't hold me back, and that I am stronger than I think I am. So an explicit thesis statement is going to be directly stated or told to you without any room for interpretation. So that means I'm going to say at the end of the essay exactly what I want you to think about me. I have X, Y, and Z. I'm this kind of person. I have these characteristics, and this is how my short story or narrative tells me. Any questions so far? Still doing good? All right, so there's a couple tricks to do this very well and how to write a good essay with all of the key things I want. The first thing you want to do in a narrative essay is use concrete, specific details. So use vivid description, concrete, specific details. Instead of saying things like, I was happy to be home, I'd say something like, sitting on the back porch at my parents' house, I was amazed at how relaxed I felt. There was no hint of my worries without bills and deadlines and dirty dishes in the sink. I completely gave myself over to being cared for as I hadn't done since I left home 15 years ago. Which one of these is more specific and concrete, right? I want to read the second one. That's the story I want to connect to. Like, instead of I was happy to be home, I have a bigger view of what she's talking about. She's relaxing. She feels the stress of her day release itself, and that she doesn't have to be the one making all the decisions. It's a beautiful thing. We do that by using specific details. Instead of I was happy, she's showing that with her body language. When I'm happy, my face gets all tight from my smile, and my eyes get all squinty, and my face just like lights itself up. She's showing this by how she's relaxing. Sitting on the back porch of my parents' house, I was amazed at how relaxed I felt. You know, this is a different feeling. No hint of worries or bills or deadlines and dirty dishes in the sink. All these are things that you would be worried about. I wasn't worried. I didn't have to think about those things. I completely gave myself over to being cared for as I hasn't done since I left house 15 years ago. Wow. Another trick is to use imagery. And when I say imagery, I mean your five senses. So thinking about taste, touch, smell, what you hear, and what you see. And so when you're thinking about these things, and if you're having a hard time and you're not good at using concrete things, think about what's going on. So if I sat at my desk, I might say the cold plastic wood gripped my fingers as I slid them across the desk. And maybe I want to talk about me being nervous. Think about what that feels like. My stomach pulled in and it ached as I looked at my students. A cold sweat started to run down my back. Can I do this? Am I capable of it? So when you start to think about what you see, what you hear, what you taste, what you touch, what you smell, all of those things help to build a better story and help to bring your audience into it so they're having a stronger narrative. Other things to do are use action verbs instead of to be verbs. So be verbs are words that are be, am, is, are, was, were, been, being. All these words are just bland. If I say I was at the beach versus I cried at the beach, those are very different things. I cried as I sat in the cold sand underneath the stars at the beach. Okay, that's a better story. If I want to use a concrete moment, use imagery, and use action verbs, you can make a much stronger thing. So I could say, I want to have a happy one. As the waves crested, I wondered about life as I frolicked at the beach with my friends. It's a much different image, and all I'm using is those three things I told you. Concrete, one single moment, thinking about my senses, and using action words. Other things to avoid, and these are mostly topics. So this comes from college admissions counselors around the world, and what they say, I guess probably mostly in America, not around the world, about what are essays that they're tired of reading. You have to think that each school gets out 50,000 applicants every year. Some more than that, some less than that. And they read a ton of essays. So you want to think about what the college admissions counselors read and things that aren't going to be effective. So things to avoid. Religion. Unless it's going to be your chosen major, probably not what you should choose. Same thing with politics or any kind of hot button issues that people get upset about. Unless you have specifically been part of an organization and you're talking about how you've developed this issue and how you've dealt with it and how your actions have happened there. Talking about things like COVID or quarantining or gun control or abortion or legalizing marijuana, or any of those things that people are really sensitive about, probably isn't what you want to put in your essay. Because first, what if the admissions committee member has a different perspective than you? You're immediately alienating your audience. But also, usually these topics aren't about you. They're about the world. And unless something's specifically about you, let's say you helped organize a Black Lives Matter rally in Round Rock. That would be amazing. That would be something you could write about. But unless you're talking about how you've done something, you're going to talk about how something affected you. And you want to talk about your agency and your purpose and your actions in these essays, and not how other things have affected you. Same thing with like sports injuries. Admission counselors say no more. They think that your life is bigger than your sports. So while my brother tore his ACL in high school and that was the defining moment in his life, it isn't something that they care about. Deceased grandparents or classmates. This is same thing with the politics thing. This is something that changes your life and is life altering. However, they tend to be about the person lost and not about you. So you want to think about what stories you have to offer and where you are showing that you're the best candidate. All of these ones right here so far don't show how you're the best candidate for their school and how you're going to be someone different, right? They're just talking about things that you care about. No girlfriend, boyfriend, soulmate stories. Not saying you can't marry your high school sweetheart. My brother married his 7th grade girlfriend. However, college admissions essays don't want to read about that. And also, it's usually not about you. Unless you have like a Fault in Our Stars kind of relationship where you're taking care of somebody else or something, right? That's not going to be about you. And then anything else that just can be read off your transcript. So if you want to talk about how you're a drum major at Round Rock High School and everything on your resume is about band, that doesn't add any depth to you. That's the same thing you've been talking about. So instead, think about something that is special or new that you can talk to and give them a better view of yourself. Because the whole thing with the college essay is its goal is to expand the readers or their readers to the college admissions counselors' view of you so they have a better idea what kind of student you are for their school. Narrative writing can be very personal and can almost feel a little alienating sometimes because you feel like you have to know something about yourself and share it with other people. Narrative writing shouldn't feel like I know this about myself and have to put it on there. You're processing these things as you write. So sometimes you're starting to tell a story and you discover things about yourself in ways you want other people to perceive you. So think of this not as a task and like something you have to do, but think about a way to explore yourself and understand yourself at a better place. Writing allows us not just to see ourselves and share with others, but to process who we are, to understand who we are at our core, and then be able to share that and preserve our life experiences with others. So, a lot of times I have kids come up to me at this time of the year and go, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know who I want to be. I don't even know what college I want to go to. And I didn't either. That's okay. I went to college pre-med, and obviously I'm a teacher. I changed my mind. So it's okay to change your mind. Your value and your self-worth isn't in your job. But it is good to be taking care of yourself and putting yourself in a better position for the future. So regardless of if you feel like you're behind or if you know exactly what you want to do and you've known since the 3rd grade that you want to be an aerospace engineer, that's totally fine. But if you aren't sure, take this time to figure it out, because that's what writing does, is it helps you explore who you are and your ideas. And it lets other people see the world through your eyes. That's why we read. So today, I will say this will change this date into be Thursday. It'll be 4/22. So because the internet is out, we'll just push this back. The assignment can be due after the asynchronous day. And that way that y'all aren't worried about, is Schoology working, is it not? As a reminder, Wednesday is an asynchronous day. I will send out an email with all the instructions, so just be keeping up with those. And I will walk you through the assignment on Schoology really quick, because I do have access to Schoology. And we'll get started. And then I'll let you go. This might be a good time to try, is your Schoology working too?
It isn't.
Okay, that's okay. I'm just going to show y'all mine so that you can ask questions if you have any about the assignment. So every year, Johns Hopkins releases the five college essays that I think they think are example essays of what you should do when you're applying for college. And so I've pulled one of those essays, and we're going to go through it. Here we go. Using the criteria I explained in the PowerPoint, and then thinking about what's so good about this. So your job next class will be to read this essay. It's really not that long, and it's pretty straightforward. And then you're going to answer the question. So what is the thesis of the essay? Is it implicit or explicit? If implicit, what details give you the thesis? If it's explicit, copy and paste it to your essay, the line there. And then find a section that is mostly seen. Remember, that's the storytelling part. And then copy and paste it there. And then explain what is special about it or specifically moving. And then the same thing with the reflection thing. Then this is what the admissions committee said about the essay. It said, Sam's essay connects the skills he learned from switching sports, seeking out advice, taking risks, and being open-minded to others' perspective in his life. He shares with the admissions committee traits that he values, as well as concrete examples of how those traits are defined, the ways he handled situations. By doing so, Sam demonstrated that he understands the larger significance of his experience and how he'll carry those takeaways with him moving forward. So I want you to go back then and highlight 3 examples of hard work, dedication, or openness that the essay shows. And then I want you to think about, okay, after reading this, what are your strengths? What can you bring to the table to a college or admissions committee